The sky over Varelia was a burning orange, streaked with dark clouds that twisted like smoke from a fire no one could reach. The planet had once been quiet, filled with forests of silver-leaved trees and crystal rivers that shone under the twin suns. Now it was under attack. Alien ships hovered over its surface, their massive shadows swallowing villages and cities alike. From above, Varelia looked like a battlefield already lost, but down on the ground, hope still flickered. Captain Celine Rourke stood at the edge of a cliff, her eyes scanning the horizon. She was human, a member of the small but determined human colony stationed on Varelia. Around her, the sounds of the military camp carried, the clanging of armor, the low hum of energy shields, and the sharp commands of soldiers preparing for what they feared most. "They're coming," said Lieutenant Dara, Celine's second-in-command, her voice tense. She pointed to the distant plains where dark shapes moved like shadows across the ground. Celine didn't speak immediately. Her hand rested lightly on the small device at her belt, one the aliens had never seen before. It was a biolink module, a human invention that allowed her to summon creatures unlike anything the aliens had encountered. They thought they could control the battlefield with brute force, but Celine knew something they didn't. Humans were not just clever, they were unpredictable. "They think this is a game of strength," Celine said finally, her voice calm. "But humans are not prey, we adapt. We fight back in ways they cannot imagine." The first reports arrived moments later. The aliens had unleashed their weapon, the apex beast. It appeared over the hills like a mountain in motion, its forelegs taller than a building, its eyes glowing with an unnatural intelligence. Its skin was thick and armored, yet flexible enough to allow terrifying speed. The ground trembled with every step it took. Soldiers in the camp froze. They had trained for combat, for alien invasions, even for chemical attacks, but nothing had prepared them for this. The apex beast was designed to kill, to destroy, to make every other creature on the planet seem weak and fragile. It roared, a deep echoing sound that carried across the plains and made the air itself feel alive with danger. Celine's lips curved into a small smile. Not of fear, but of confidence. She knew this moment would define everything. The aliens had underestimated humans. They always did. "They think they can break us with one creature," Celine whispered. She pressed a button on her belt. A soft hum filled the air as the biolink device activated. She closed her eyes and focused, reaching out, not with her hands, but with her mind. From the forest behind the camp, a shadow moved. Leaves rustled, trees bent, and a deep growl echoed through the air. Soldiers turned, fear and awe mixing in their expressions. Emerging from the woods was Celine's own creature. It was not as tall as the apex beast, not at first glance, but there was something in its posture that made the hairs on the back of every soldier's neck rise. Its scales shimmered with a faint golden light, and its eyes, deep, intelligent, and understanding, locked onto Celine as if awaiting orders. Its claws dug into the soil, and the ground seemed to pulse with the rhythm of its heartbeat. "This is Aegis," Celine said softly, "and today, we show them that humans do not bow." The apex beast noticed the movement immediately. Its glowing eyes focused on the new threat, and it roared again, louder this time. The sound was deafening. Birds scattered, dust rose, and the ground itself seemed to shiver. Soldiers raised their weapons, energy rifles glowing in anticipation, but Celine shook her head. "Hold fire," she ordered. "This is not a fight we begin with bullets. This is a fight of strategy, of mind and will." Aegis stepped forward, low to the ground, muscles coiled. Celine reached out with her mind, and the bond sparked instantly. She could feel Aegis' thoughts, its instincts, its readiness to leap into battle, and it could feel hers. In that connection, they were not two beings, they were one. The apex beast lunged first. Its movement was swift, faster than any human could track. Dust kicked up and rocks shattered under its massive feet. But Aegis was ready. With a single leap, it met the creature head-on, claws swinging, tail lashing. The impact shook the ground so violently that nearby soldiers stumbled. Celine guided Aegis subtly, nudging it to exploit weaknesses she had noticed in the apex's movement. The creature reacted instantly, shifting, dodging, and counterattacking with precision. For every strike the apex beast made, Aegis found a way to parry or counter, keeping itself alive while wearing down the enemy. The humans watched in awe. They had trained with the expectation that their weapons were their best defense. But now they saw something different. This was not just a fight of strength. It was a fight of intelligence, intuition, and partnership. Meanwhile, the aliens in orbit above grew frustrated. They had sent their ultimate weapon, expecting the humans to fall like all the other species they had conquered. And yet here was proof that humans were not easily defeated. They were clever. They were adaptable. And most of all, they were unpredictable. Selene did not let her focus waver. Each move she made guided Aegis subtly, turning the apex beast's power against itself. The two creatures circled, collided, and retreated, each testing the other, each learning from the other's moves. And through it all, Selene's calm determination radiated, giving the human soldiers hope. After what felt like hours, the apex beast paused, breathing heavily, its glowing eyes narrowing at its opponent. Aegis mirrored the pause, muscles coiled, ready for the next strike. For the first time, the battlefield felt silent, not empty but tense, as if the planet itself was holding its breath. Selene looked over her shoulder at the camp. Soldiers were no longer frozen with fear. They were inspired. They had seen the impossible. They had seen that humans could summon power not through machines alone, but through the bond between mind and creature, strategy and instinct, she whispered to herself. Almost as a promise, they think they can kill us with fear, but they are about to learn what humans can do when they fight together. The suns began to set over Virelia, painting the sky in shades of fire and shadow. The battle was far from over. The apex beast was only the first wave, the beginning of a war that could decide the fate of the planet. But Selene and Aegis, connected in mind and purpose, were ready, and the humans would not back down. Because on Virelia, the strongest weapon was not the one they had sent, it was the one they had underestimated: the human spirit. The plains of Virelia trembled as the apex beast recovered from its first encounter with Aegis. Dust and broken rocks littered the ground where they had collided, leaving deep scars across the soil. Soldiers and villagers watched from the camp, their breaths held tight in anticipation. None of them had ever seen anything like this before. A human-summoned creature facing the galaxy's most feared weapon and holding its ground. Selene Rourke stood at the edge of the camp, her eyes sharp. The apex beast was powerful, yes, but Selene had studied its movements carefully. It was intelligent, yes, but predictable in certain ways. Every creature had a rhythm, a pattern, a weakness, and she could feel it in her mind. Aegis was ready, coiled like a spring, its golden scales reflecting the dying sunlight. "This is it, Aegis," Selene whispered through the mental link. "Stay close. Watch for its patterns. I'll guide you, but you must think too. Use your instincts," Aegis responded with a low, growling hum. Its eyes gleamed with understanding, and it shifted its weight forward. The bond between Selene and Aegis was strong. They didn't need words. Every thought Selene sent, every instinct Aegis felt moved as one. The apex beast roared, a sound that shook the air and rattled the camp's walls. Then, in a sudden burst, it lunged forward with terrifying speed, smashing the ground beneath it. The soldiers raised their weapons instinctively, energy rifles firing bright blue beams, but the apex beast was faster than the human's aim. Its armored body deflected the shots, leaving scorch marks but no damage. Aegis leaped forward to intercept, muscles coiled, claws extended. The two creatures collided in a storm of dust and debris. The sound of snapping trees and cracking earth filled the air as the battle began in earnest. The apex beast struck first, swiping with one massive paw. Aegis rolled aside, feeling the wind of the strike brush against its scales. Selene guided it quickly, nudging it to dodge again, then counterattack. Aegis lunged, biting the apex beast's armored leg. Sparks flew where its teeth met reinforced plates, but it didn't give up. The humans in the camp cheered quietly, watching in awe as Aegis held its own against the enemy. This was not a creature acting blindly. It was thinking, reacting, and adapting. And Selene could feel it all. Every strike, every dodge, every hesitation was shared between them. The apex beast roared again and charged, faster this time. Its intelligence was terrifying. It was learning from Aegis's movements, predicting where it would strike. Selene adjusted, guiding Aegis to the side, then feinted forward, tricking the apex into overextending. Aegis pounced on the opening, its claws raking the beast's side. A deep, angry roar filled the plains, echoing like thunder. The first real impact left the ground cracked and dust rose in great clouds. Soldiers could barely see, but they could hear. The growls, the roars, the sounds of two titanic beings locked in combat. "You see that, Dara?" One soldier shouted to her lieutenant. It's like they're reading each other's minds. Lie. The suns rose over Virelia again, lighting the plains with a faint gold glow. The air smelled of scorched earth and torn metal. The battlefield from the night before was quiet now, but it carried the weight of what had happened. The apex beasts had withdrawn for the moment, leaving behind claw marks, shattered armor, and deep craters in the ground. Yet the humans still stood. Celine Rourke walked among the soldiers at the camp. She could see their tired faces, their cracked armor, but also the spark in their eyes. They had fought and survived. For the first time since the invasion began, they had real hope. She knew she had to keep that hope alive. Aegis, her golden-scaled partner, rested nearby. Its wings, thin but strong, folded against its back, its eyes glowing softly. It was recovering, but it stayed alert, scanning the horizon. The bond between Celine and Aegis was stronger now, deepened by the clash with the apex beast. Every moment they had shared in battle had sharpened their connection. Lieutenant Dara approached Celine with a tablet full of reports. "Scouts say the aliens are regrouping," she said quietly. "They're sending more beasts soon. We can't match their numbers." Celine nodded but didn't look worried. "Numbers aren't everything," she said softly. "We have something they don't," Dara frowned. "You mean Aegis?" "I mean us," Celine replied, turning to face her second-in-command. "All of us. We're not like them, Dara, and that is our strength." The soldiers gathered later that morning for a briefing. Celine stood on a makeshift platform. Aegis behind her, a looming figure of gold and power. The humans stared, some still nervous, but most now curious. They wanted to know the truth. How she had summoned Aegis and why no one else had done something like this before. Celine spoke clearly. "You've seen what we can do," she began. "You've seen Aegis fight, but you haven't seen the whole story." She paused, letting the quiet sink in. The wind carried the faint sounds of the distant forest. "Humans," she continued, "have always adapted to the worlds we visit. We learn, we build, we create, but there's something else we do better than anyone in the galaxy. We bond. Not just with each other, with creatures, with life itself." The soldiers exchanged glances. A few nodded, others frowned in confusion. Celine tapped the BioLink module on her belt. "This device is just a key," she explained. "It doesn't create the bond. It only unlocks what's already there." She gestured to Aegis. "This creature was not made in a lab. It was grown, raised. We didn't build it. We found it, and it chose us. Humans can form a cognitive symbiotic link, something no other known species can do. We don't just command. We connect." Dara stepped forward. "But why only you?" she asked softly. "Why hasn't anyone else tried?" Celine smiled faintly. "They have. Many times. But it's not about force. It's not about power. It's about trust. These creatures don't answer to orders. They answer to something deeper. And humans. Humans are the only ones who have that kind of connection." A murmur spread through the crowd. For years they had heard that humans were weaker, slower, less advanced than other species. Now they were learning they had something unique. Celine continued. "The aliens think our weapons are our strength. They think our numbers or our ships are our only tools. But what they don't understand is that our greatest weapon is our ability to work together, with each other, and with life itself. That is why Aegis fights with me. That is why we survived last night." Later, Celine walked with Dara along the edge of the camp. "I'm going to need others," Celine said quietly. "I can't do this alone." "You think others can summon their own?" Dara asked. Celine nodded. "I know they can. But they'll need to learn. They'll need to earn it," Dara frowned. "And what if the aliens find out?" Celine's eyes hardened. "They already know something's different. They're watching, but they won't understand. They can't. That's what will save us." Aegis followed them silently, its claws making soft impressions in the dirt. It lifted its head and looked toward the horizon where faint shapes moved, alien scout drones gliding silently over the plains. "They're watching us," Dara said. "Good," Celine replied. "Let them watch." That night, Celine sat by a small fire outside her tent. The stars shone brightly overhead, twin moons casting pale light over the camp. She closed her eyes, feeling Aegis's presence beside her. The bond was more than communication. It was like having another heartbeat inside her own. She remembered the first time she had met Aegis, years ago, before the war. On a distant world with forests of black stone and rivers of glowing moss, she had found a strange egg, warm and humming with energy. She had kept it safe, knowing instinctively it was alive in a way she couldn't explain. When it hatched, Aegis had chosen her. It had grown fast, learning from her, mirroring her emotions, protecting her when no one else could. She had never told anyone the full story. Until now. Aegis shifted closer, resting its head near her shoulder. She placed her hand on its scales, feeling their faint warmth. "They'll come again," she whispered. "But we'll be ready." Aegis gave a low, comforting growl. By morning, training had begun. Celine chose 5 soldiers from the camp, ones she had noticed working with animals or showing patience or simply holding calm in chaos. She guided them to a clearing near the forest and explained the basics. "This is not about control," she told them. "It's about connection. You can't force it. You can only open yourself to it." They practiced with smaller creatures first, the wild drakes and silver-limbed runners that lived on Virelia. Celine showed them how to reach out with their minds, not their hands, how to let the creature feel their intent. It was slow at first. Some failed. Some grew frustrated, but Celine knew this was the first step to something bigger. Meanwhile, the alien ships in orbit were restless. Their commanders argued among themselves. They had watched their apex beast fall short of total victory, and now they saw humans doing something no other species had done, summoning more creatures, training others to do the same. "What are they?" one alien asked in a low, hissing voice. "How do they bond with these things?" "They are humans," another said bitterly. "They do not follow rules." By the end of the week, one of the soldiers succeeded. A young engineer named Kai managed to bond with a smaller beast, a silver-backed runner that lived near the river. The bond was weak, fragile, but it was there. Celine smiled as she watched. "This is the beginning," she said softly. "If one can do it, others will follow." Aegis stood beside her, wings spreading slightly as if in pride. Celine turned to Dara. "When the next apex beast comes, we won't face it alone. We'll face it together." That night, Celine dreamed of the future. She saw humans standing beside their bonded creatures, forming an army unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Not machines, not clones, not weapons, but living beings connected by trust and purpose. She saw the aliens retreating, confused and afraid. She saw humans rebuilding Virelia, stronger than before, and she saw herself and Aegis at the heart of it all, not just as warriors, but as symbols of something new. When she woke, she found Aegis watching her, its eyes glowing softly in the dim light. She smiled, feeling a rare moment of peace. "They don't understand us," she whispered, "and that's why we'll win." Aegis lowered its head in agreement. At dawn, the scouts returned with news. A new wave of apex beasts was approaching. Larger, faster, smarter. Celine felt a chill run down her spine, but also a spark of determination. This time they would be ready. This time humans would fight not just with weapons, but with the creatures that had chosen them. She walked to the edge of the camp, Aegis at her side, and looked out over the plains. The rising suns painted the sky in fire and gold. Somewhere out there, the enemy was coming. But here in this camp, something new was rising. The first real hope humans had ever known in this war. Celine placed her hand on Aegis's neck and whispered, "This is our secret. This is our power. And this is how we win." The morning air on Virelia was heavy with tension. The twin suns hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the cracked plains. Celine Rourke stood at the edge of the human camp, her hands clasped behind her back. Around her, soldiers hurried to strengthen defenses, loading energy rifles and placing shield emitters into the ground. The smell of metal and scorched soil filled the air. She could feel Aegis nearby, its steady heartbeat echoing faintly through their mental link. The golden-scaled creature stood still, its wings folded tightly, eyes scanning the horizon with sharp focus. Celine had slept little. She had spent the night training soldiers, showing them how to open their minds to Virelia's native creatures. Now some of them stood with their own bonded beasts, small but fierce. Lieutenant Dara approached, a grim look on her face. "Scouts just returned," she said. "They're coming again. More apex beasts than before. Bigger, faster, smarter." Celine nodded, calm but alert. "Then we'll show them what we've learned." She looked over the camp. There were changes since the first battle. Soldiers now moved in groups with their bonded animals, silver-backed runners, forest drakes, and other creatures from Virelia's wild lands. They were not as strong as Aegis, but they were quick and clever, able to support the humans in ways machines could not. This is no longer just survival, Celine murmured. This is evolution. The ground began to tremble long before the enemy was visible. Dust rose on the far horizon, forming a dark, shifting line. The soldiers froze, staring at the Rizi. The night after the great battle was quiet, but it was not peaceful. Everyone in the camp felt it, a strange tension in the air, like the world itself was holding its breath. The wounded were being treated, weapons repaired, and creatures fed. Yet every soldier moved with one question in mind. What will the aliens send next? Celine Rourke sat with Aegis on a ridge above the camp. The golden creature's wings were folded tightly, its head resting near her feet. She stroked the edge of its neck absent-mindedly, staring at the stars. In the sky above, the alien ships still hung like silent hunters, their dark shapes blinking with faint lights. Lieutenant Dara approached quietly. "Scouts found something," she said. "You need to see it." Celine stood and followed her. They moved to the command tent where holographic maps flickered with shifting blue and red lights. The scouts had marked a new signal on the far side of the plains. It was huge, far larger than any apex beast they had seen before. "What is it?" Dara asked. Celine studied the image. The readings were unstable, almost impossible to read, as though the creature was bending the sensors themselves. "They've stopped playing," she said softly. "This is their ultimate weapon." At dawn, the horizon trembled. Every soldier in the camp felt the vibrations before they heard the sound. It was deep and rolling, like thunder from beneath the earth. Beasts hissed and growled, their claws scratching the soil nervously. Soldiers tightened their grips on rifles and checked their armor straps. Then, through the morning mist, the Colossus appeared. It was unlike anything they had seen. Taller than the alien ships themselves, the creature's body looked carved from living stone and metal. Its four legs sank deep into the soil with every step, each movement cracking the ground. Plates of black armor ran down its back, glowing with shifting blue light. Its head was a fortress of jagged horns and shining eyes. The Colossus stopped at the edge of the plains and raised its head, releasing a roar so deep it shook the mountains miles away. The soldiers staggered under the pressure wave, covering their ears. Even the bonded beasts whimpered and crouched low. Celine stood still, her hand resting on Aegis's neck. Through their bond, she felt Aegis's instincts, fear, yes, but also determination. Aegis was not running. Neither was she. "This is it," she whispered. "This is the fight we were born for." The alien ships moved closer, forming a circle above the Colossus. Beams of energy poured down into its armored plates, feeding it power, like lightning striking a mountain over and over. The glow across its body brightened until it looked like a living star on the battlefield. Celine raised her voice. "Everyone to positions. Shield walls up. Keep your beast calm." Soldiers scrambled, activating shield emitters and forming overlapping lines. Energy barriers flickered to life, shimmering blue across the camp. Beasts crouched low, claws gripping the earth, ready to spring. Celine climbed onto Aegis's back. The golden beast rose to its full height, wings spreading wide. The camp fell silent as they watched their leader and her companion. "This creature is not invincible," Celine called. "It's just another weapon. We've beaten them before. We'll do it again." She felt Aegis's power surge through their bond. It was stronger now, richer, as though their shared victories had deepened their connection. She closed her eyes and reached deeper, touching the heart of Aegis's mind. Images filled her head, rushing air, claw strikes, golden fire building in its chest. She nodded, understanding. "We fight as one," she whispered. The Colossus moved first. It raised one massive limb and slammed it down. The shockwave traveled through the ground like a rolling wall, knocking soldiers off their feet and shattering the first line of shields. Beasts howled as the force rolled over them. Celine sent a mental command. "Spread out. Don't cluster." The human-beast teams moved, breaking into fast groups, darting left and right. Energy rifles fired in coordinated bursts, aiming at the glowing seams between the Colossus's armor plates. Forest drakes leapt from ridges, clawing at its legs before darting away. Silver-backed runners zigzagged, distracting its sensors. Aegis launched into the air, wings beating hard. Golden fire rippled across its scales as it climbed high above the battlefield. Celine clung tight, her eyes locked on the Colossus's head. "We go for the eyes first," she murmured. The Colossus turned its glowing gaze skyward. Its mouth opened and a beam of raw energy erupted upward, slicing the air where Aegis had been a heartbeat before. Selene guided Aegis in a sharp roll, feeling the heat scorch her face. They dived, spiraling down the creature's flank. "Aegis now!" she commanded. Aegis opened its jaws and unleashed a burst of golden fire at one of the glowing seams. The flame struck, and for the first time the Colossus staggered. Its armor glowed white-hot, then cracked slightly under the pressure. "Yes," Selene whispered. "That's it. We can hurt it." Below, soldiers cheered and redoubled their attacks. Energy rifles fired again and again, focusing on the weakened seam. 2 forest drakes slammed their tails into the crack, widening it further. The Colossus roared, swinging one massive limb to crush them, but the drakes leapt away just in time. The battle became chaos. The Colossus stomped across the battlefield, leaving craters in its path. Its tail, tipped with a spiked hammer, swung in wide arcs, flattening entire rock formations. Energy beams from its mouth carved glowing trenches into the earth. Yet the humans kept moving, darting like sparks around a giant, striking and fading away. Selene and Aegis made repeated passes, striking the Colossus's eyes, joints, and seams. Each attack weakened it slightly, slowing its movements. But Selene could feel Aegis tiring, its wings heavier, its fire dimmer. The bond between them pulsed with strain. "We can't keep this up." Dara's voice crackled over the comms. "Selene, we need something bigger." Selene thought quickly. She remembered the bond training, how the creatures of Virelia could respond to human emotions, even combine their powers in rare cases. She reached out not just to Aegis but to the entire field. She opened her mind as wide as she could, calling to every bonded creature. Now she sent, "All of you. With us." Something changed in the air. The beasts responded. Silver-backed runners howled, forest drakes hissed, and smaller creatures shrieked. One by one, their eyes glowed brighter. Their claws sparked with strange energy. The bond was no longer just between human and beast. It was between all of them, linked through Selene like a living network. Aegis roared, a deep, golden sound that echoed across the battlefield. Energy surged up its wings and down its tail. Selene felt it too, a rising tide of power, bigger than herself, bigger than anything she had ever touched. The Colossus turned its massive head toward them, sensing the shift. It raised its mouth to unleash another beam, but Aegis dove straight at it, wings blazing. Behind them, every bonded creature charged at once, a tidal wave of claws, teeth, and energy. Selene guided Aegis to the Colossus's chest, where the largest glowing seam pulsed with light. "Right here," she shouted. "All of you, and strike here." The final clash was like thunder and fire. Aegis unleashed a beam of golden fire straight into the seam. At the same moment, dozens of beasts struck the same point, claws tearing, tails slamming, jaws biting. Energy rifles focused their fire, pouring everything they had into the crack. The Colossus roared, its massive body trembling. Its armor split with a sound like shattering glass. Blue light poured from the wound, spilling across the battlefield. The creature stumbled, struggling to hold itself up. Selene felt the surge of energy through the bond. "Push harder!" she called. "Now!" Aegis struck again, its claws glowing bright as stars. The seam widened further, and the Colossus finally collapsed to one knee. Soldiers cheered but did not stop. They poured every last shot into the opening until, with a final deafening roar, the Colossus fell sideways, crashing into the earth. Dust and blue light filled the air. The ground shook for a long moment, then went still. Silence. Selene slid off Aegis's back, landing on trembling legs. Around her, soldiers and beasts stared at the fallen Colossus. Its massive form lay broken, the glow in its armor fading slowly to black. "We did it," Dara said over the comms, her voice almost disbelieving. "Selene, we actually killed it." Selene looked up at the alien ships. They hovered silently, no longer firing. She could almost feel their shock. They had unleashed their ultimate weapon, and it had fallen. She placed a hand on Aegis's neck, feeling its heartbeat slow. "We did it," she echoed softly. Together. That night, the camp was alive with a strange energy. Not just relief, but transformation. Humans and beasts rested side by side, their bonds deeper than ever. Soldiers spoke quietly, some laughing, some crying as they cleaned their weapons and fed their companions. Selene sat by the largest fire, Aegis curled behind her like a golden mountain. She stared into the flames, thinking of what came next. They will not stop, she murmured. They will come again. Dara sat beside her. Then we'll be ready, she said. Whatever they send, we'll find a way. Celine smiled faintly, but her eyes stayed on the horizon. In her heart, she knew this was more than a war. It was a test of what humans could become, of what bonds could do, of what it meant to fight as one. Above them, the stars shone like silent witnesses. Somewhere out there, the aliens were planning their next move. But for now, on the plains of Virilia, humans had won again. The morning